Welcome to the Passion Behind the Art show. It's all about diving in with individuals to learn the story behind their passion. It's your host, Daryl Pena. It's another week, another amazing guest, and another opportunity for me to bring you value through someone else's story. This week's episode will be coming to you from Creative South. I was asked by Mike Jones to come out and record live at the conference, and I had a blast. Creative South is one of my favorite conferences to go to. It's a magical place. It's all about community, and it's all about building each other up. No matter what level you are, you will get value, and you will find people that are much more excited about pushing you up than pushing you down. So, without further ado, this week's episode. Well, I am super excited to have my homie, good friend, Doc Reed on the Passion Behind the Art show. Doc, welcome.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you inviting me to sit down with you.
Yeah, man. I know this has been like a long time coming.
It has.
We've been trying to work this thing out.
Yeah, my fault. All my fault.
All right, so let's jump right into it. How did your creative journey start?
Oh, man. I'm one of those typical art kids that grew up sort of with crayons in my hands, and I think kindergarten brought home the "what do you want to be when you grow up" piece of paper that gets hung up on the refrigerator with a horrible stick figure standing in front of an easel and said, "I want to draw people when I grow up," type of a thing. So art had always been part of my background or story type of thing. And there was a short stint where I wanted to be a fighter pilot. And then I had an eye injury and realized fighter pilots have to have eyes to see. Dogfights, they're important to have eyes. So it's like, okay, glasses. Not going to be something that I can be a fighter pilot with. So, all right, well, we're all in on art.
So hold on. First of all, where did the whole fighter pilot deal come in?
I was born out in California, but then real early on, I was maybe 8, and we moved to Fayetteville, North Carolina. So there was Fort Bragg and Pope Air Force Base that were pretty much 15, 20 minutes from our house, and just any given afternoon or time of day, you'd see Chinooks flying overhead, or Apaches or Warthogs, or the F-16 Falcons. Nice. And I mean, it just was one of those it got to where you could hear them coming and go, "That's a Warthog, that's a Falcon, that's an Eagle."
Really?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, just sort of.
Oh, so you could have been able to tell by the sound what it was.
Yeah,
wow,
so it was a lot of fun. Going to the Air Force Museum there, and the Fort Bragg Museum, So a lot of military influence early on.
Gotcha.
But yeah.
Okay. So what was the eye injury about?
That was a 2-liter bottle of pop, cola, Pepsi. It wasn't Pepsi, but it was like a Dr. Thunder Big K knockoff. We had opened it the night before with pizza, and I had come in. We were having a work day type of a thing, and I had come in, just reached in the refrigerator, grabbed a half full. And it was the one time I had ever stopped to read that writing around the lid, recyclable in Indiana type of a thing. And sure enough, gave it half a twist, and I'm leaning right over top of it, and it unscrews itself and pops off, hits me right square in the eyeball, and I pulled a Homer Simpson and kicked myself in a circle on the kitchen floor. The best part was my mom was on the phone with one of the ladies, I think it was helping run the Sunday school, preschool department.
Okay.
And she's looking at me like, "I'm on the phone. Can't you tell I'm on the phone?" And she goes, "I'm sorry, I'm going to have to call you back. I think Brian's hurt himself." That was back when I was called Brian. My parents called me Brian. I didn't get Doc till I was in college. But so she's like, "You better not be joking or I'm going to beat you," type of a thing. And I'm like, no. Crying, hysterical, and stuff like that. So,
dude, so did it affect your vision in any
way? For several weeks, I had temporary glaucoma.
Really?
In my right eye, and basically it was the blunt force had damaged the duct that allowed the saline to exit my eye. Like it just was pumping in fluid to keep it fresh, but none of it was leaving. So there's just a massive amount of pressure that was on my eye for a little bit, but it healed up and did its thing, and there wasn't any surgery needed. But there's a little bit of scar tissue that's floating around in there, but very minimal at this point. I was 13.
So that was like a temporary thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
All right. So you feel like okay, you've been a creative kid.
Yeah.
You went through the fighter pilot phase, and where did it go after that?
It went back to art, and honestly, with the eye injury, art was still very, very important and a big part of who I wanted to be and whatnot. And I know that they're talking with mom and dad afterwards. They're like, "Yeah, that was a real, real dark spell for you when you thought that you weren't going to be able to do art because you felt like I can't do art if I can't see what I'm doing," type of a thing. And so there was a huge plummet in my, I guess, like depression type of a thing. I remember getting my first like art desk shortly after the eye injury. Is sort of it wasn't like, hey, we need to help pull him out of this slump type of a thing, but that's essentially what it was. Like I'd been saving up money to buy it myself, and they sort of pulled the trigger and were like, hey, you've done real well saving up your allowance type of thing to get this. So they didn't tell me at the time that it was to help sort of inject me with some positive energy and whatnot. But yeah, so it was, I guess art got me back.
Okay. So what kind of desk was it? Was it one of those ones that...
Yeah, it was an old Alvin. It was a white Alvin desk drafting table that had the screws at the back and the front.
What you're talking about.
You raise it up as high as you want, and you put that little angle on it.
Yeah.
My lamp finally broke in the last move from Wilmington to Charlotte like 3 years ago, and I was just like,
yeah, that's a big deal.
I was like, that's been with me for over 20 years.
You kept it that long?
I kept it that long, yeah. The desk is in my garage right now holding up my exposure unit for some of the screen printing that I do.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's still, I got that in 93 and it's still with me.
That was a good buy.
Yeah, totally a good buy. I was going to say, they don't make things like that anymore.
Wow.
So
I still can't believe that.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, so where did it go after that? You went to school for design, got a degree.
Yep, as like a couple people that I've heard on your show talk about. Yeah, I didn't know what graphic design was till like senior high school or college type of thing. Like I was in art school, and my art teacher my senior year, Miss Alice, she signed my yearbook. She's like, one of these days you're going to make a fantastic graphic artist or graphic designer. And I was like, I'm going to have to go look this up because I have no idea what graphic artist is. And that was sort of the first time I was like, oh, there's this whole other world outside of just art history that I had not really been exposed to. Like comic books were an entry point as well as cartoons, but I hadn't made the connection of like matte painting and background painting as a form of art, and then comic books as sequential art and panel design and composition type of a thing. It was all just like, this is really cool. I loved looking at the images, and I didn't really read comics. I read visually.
Right, exactly.
I was just like, oh man, yeah,
this is cool.
And then I would read the comic once, just flipping through the pages, looking at the story, and then I would read it again for the word. I sort of do that with foreign films a little bit. Like I will watch subtitles. I'll watch the movie first, trying to read the subtitles, and then go back and be able to, once I understand where the story's going, I can enjoy the nuances of the cinematography a lot more. So, but yeah,
like
it's tough to do that.
Foreign movies with subtitles. My wife loves those.
She loves them.
No, it's work. I'm watching to enjoy, not to work.
Yeah,
it's work.
100%.
Like I don't want to work. Wow, I don't want to work.
Yes.
So what was? Do you remember what that feeling was like? Because that's like crazy to have someone write in your yearbook You're gonna be. Do you remember what that feeling was like after you read that from a teacher?
I mean, it was one of those things like initially my pride was dinged a little bit because I didn't know what it was, and there was maybe a little bit of like, no, I wanted to be an artist. I have to now understand what this is, type of thing. Once I understood like more of what it was, like,
Right.
and realized it wasn't like I didn't at the time like marketing, advertising, and all of that stuff was not in the picture. It wasn't
Right.
included. Like that came in college when
Gotcha.
we were learning about, you know,
All that stuff.
more
all that
of
stuff.
the design side. But I mean, it was super cool. Like when I figured out and what it was and went back and reread it, and it's like one of these days you're going to make a fantastic graphic artist. I was like, that came from an honest and sincere place. I was
Right.
like, that's really cool that someone would like believe in me,
Right,
type
right,
of a
right.
thing. So I mean, teachers have always had like a special spot in my mind because of the fact that like I was in class with some terrible kids. I mean, we had kids that would put in like X-Acto blades in
Oh
the
my
fronts of
gosh.
airplanes and
Oh
throwing
my
paper airplanes
gosh.
across, and it's just like when you got to deal with that type of crap, and you still want to pour in to the
Right,
kids.
right.
That takes a special person, and
Right.
I mean, there aren't many people like that in this world.
The tolerance level is totally different now. But it's crazy you said that. Like, I had one class, a chemistry class.
Okay.
And I'm telling you, like, I don't know why I was placed in this class, but it was the worst set of kids I've ever been around in my entire life. They gave that teacher hell. Like, legit
Just because
hell.
they could.
Yes, legit hell. That was so crazy. So that means that when you first read the quote, you were more thinking, "Oh, she's telling me I can't do art."
No, well, I mean, there may have been a little bit of confusion because I was thinking,
Like, you want to be an artist?
yeah, I wanted to be an artist, and I just being naive and not knowing what it was,
Gotcha.
I had to sort of take a step back and go, apparently there's a whole nother door in a world that I need to explore, type
Right,
of a
right,
thing.
right.
Because she obviously saw that and coming from comic books and cartoons, like there was a stylization that I was trying to break down, and a lot of it came from the influence of comic books, where they would break forms and figures down into recognizable, almost symbols.
Right.
Like I think Chris Doe in one of his YouTube videos, he was talking about comic book artists that basically their style comes out of their visual shorthand.
Right.
For like, hey,
Yeah,
this is
that's
how
true.
I'm going to
Yep.
draw a nose and an eye.
Yep.
So you know Jack Kirby's look from any of the others, just
it's
sort
true.
of that flat, angular approach type of things. Then you got John Romita Jr. type of a thing, and John Romita Sr. and Mark Bagley and Eric Larson, and they all had
Like that
a
signature.
like a visual language that they had adopted and just come to own.
Right.
And at that point, I was still just copying all of their visual language and making my dictionary larger.
We all did it, bro.
Oh yeah, and I think you have to some point until you understand like what your shorthand then becomes.
Right.
So, but yeah,
So you know what's crazy, and this I never understood this. Like, we all knew about the comic side, the animated side, but it's like none of us realized what the heck
What it was.
graphic
Yeah,
design,
yeah.
like the whole idea of graphic design. We got the comic side, but not graphic design, creating logos, collateral, all of that stuff.
I mean, it is definitely crazy, for sure. And there's a book out. It's Maurice Noble, who was like the background artist painter that worked closely with Chuck Jones on a lot of his the Looney Tunes cartoons.
Yeah, I know
cartoons.
Chuck
Some of
Jones.
the best,
Right.
in my opinion. And it's one of those things like looking at it as a kid, I never understood and the composition of how like the backgrounds were designed. Like they
Right.
were drawn in such a way that they pulled you through the spaces.
Right.
And flipping through some of these books where they've got some of that, noted out, it's like, holy moly.
Yeah.
Like there's a science to it and a purpose for the way that the designs were done. So it was like just all around us and was completely oblivious to it.
I always like seeing like those older guys or those who drew all these characters. I like seeing their old sketches, with the notes and stuff like that. Like it just changes the whole perspective.
100%.
Yeah, and then to imagine like what they had to deal with technology wise, like
No computers. It was all done on acetate and tracing paper. If you screw up, I did one of the best like little nuggets. Like sometimes you can see Bugs Bunny's got 4 whiskers, 2 on each side, and sometimes he's got 3 or 6, 3 on each side, and it was because of budget constraints. They had to cut down on the amount of ink that they were doing, and so they cut out 2 whiskers off of every cell that they were painting, 24 for a second. It apparently added up, and I was just like, huh.
that's crazy.
I never would have missed those 2 whiskers, but from like a character development and design standpoint, and then like, hey, it's a real quick, easy way to stay on budget when things are tight.
Wow, like I would have never knew that. That's crazy. Whiskers taking up space. So, all right, so you're doing your thing. You're in design. Like, did you? After you graduate, did you jump into like that dream job? Like, what was the career path?
Oh man, right out of college, I jumped straight into Walden Books.
Into what?
Walden Books. They're chapter 13 now. Basically, it was a bookshop. That was sort of small. It was in malls, nowhere near the scale and size of like a Barnes and Noble or a Books a Million type of a thing. Super bookstore.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it was. I definitely graduated with a completely jacked perspective on how the design and art career worked. Like I graduated, and I think part of it was I always wanted to make sure that I did good work, and that I never made it on anybody else's name or dime.
Gotcha.
So I completely missed the whole point of it's not what you know, it's who you know.
No.
I always took that as like dirty politician, like, oh yeah, let me get you, and it always had a slimy, shady
feel to you.
Yeah, and completely miss it. It wasn't for several years till I realized, oh, like my buddy over here is working, and they're kicking around ideas for this mural or wanting to kick off a conference type of a thing, and he's like, I got a buddy that could do it, and he hits me up. He's like, hey, do you have bandwidth to take this on? We're looking for X, Y, and Z.
Gotcha.
If you've got some, you want to throw a bid in with some sketches and comps and stuff like that. I'd love to put your name in the hat. And that was sort of that was 2013. So I mean, that was sort of when the light bulb clicked. I'm like, oh, that's the power of having relationships with people. And even like, I don't even like using the word networking because it still has a lot of that.
It's a kind of different, like building relationships and networking.
I mean,
there's no emotion.
Technically it's the same thing, but I think it's how people do it.
Right.
If there's that purpose and thoughtfulness behind the actions and motives, like I just wanted to get to know you back in October type of thing. I don't think our paths had crossed. I know we were at Creative South for several years together.
If it did, it wasn't long enough to even remember. Right.
Yeah. And so, I mean, when we threw down back in October, I was like, holy cow, like, why are we not fast friends for several years type of a thing?
Exactly.
So that was sort of how I had begun approaching, and I had always really looked at networking. It was just being friends to anybody that came into my life for whatever reason, and offering to be a cheerleader, if they were doing amazing
help,
stuff,
whatever
if
the case may be.
Yeah, just they needed somebody to sit and talk to and sort of work through some stuff mentally, or just needed a sounding board. Like I wanted to be that person as well, and so that was how I looked at networking and building relationships. I never was looking for an in, and now several years into my career, it's like, oh, I was networking the entire time. I just
looked at it differently,
doing it completely different type of thing. It wasn't trying. I want to be your friend because of what you can do for me. Type of a thing. Yeah. So, and I think that's a huge piece. I think people are getting a lot better about it. Yeah. At least in my interactions, I'm sure that it's still happening.
It's still out there. It's still out there.
But yeah. So
I think that you have to have some kind of mutual balance. Yeah. Okay. And I feel like if it's just that sole reason, I'm gonna get to know Doc strictly because I know Doc knows this person.
Yeah.
It comes off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep,
and
yep.
it's not gonna last.
I mean, it's trying to like make friends with girls that you liked in high school, trying to make friends with her friends, or
Yeah.
like a guy friend that she's friends with. You're like, oh yeah, what's up, Jimmy? So you know Jessica? You want to introduce me to Jessica? And then it just is destined for failure.
That's funny. So far, like, it didn't seem like there was any struggle. But what would you say was the hardest struggle you had to experience in your creative journey?
Art?
In your creative journey.
Oh man.
Or in life.
Man. Man. I mean, we all are dealing with demons at some level.
Right.
I think one of the biggest things that I'm realizing now is that everybody's dealing with imposter syndrome. Some deal with it better. And I know that's sort of become a buzzword in our industry is imposter syndrome. But I think beyond that, like, we all want to do the best work that we can.
Right.
And we all are doing the best we can with where we are in our careers. And we're always looking at the person that's 5 to 10 to 20 to 100 steps down the road. And that constant comparison. It's sort of like me when I graduated, got married, and wanted to buy a house. Like, I expected to be able to buy a house that I grew up living in, that my parents had built for took them 30 years to get to that point, to be able to afford a house with the bedrooms and the dining room and the backyard. And it was crushing when I went to the bank and they're like, you can afford this little box over here on this concrete pad. I was like, what do you mean? I can't have a picket fence in a backyard for the kids to go run around? He's like, bro, you don't even have kids yet. You just got married.
Isn't that funny, though?
I think we do that with our art careers a lot, where I graduated and I was just, I'm amazing and everybody knows it. And then you get out of the world and you be like,
nah, bro.
Nobody knows about me, who I am, what I'm doing. And I spent far too many nights. I don't regret hanging out and playing video games with my buddies. I just wish I'd have been more intentional and purposeful about setting goals for myself at an early age, because I could have done both. I just chose to have more fun than I did set vision and goals and whatnot for myself. And now I'm playing catch up.
Right.
But I think creatives in general have a tendency to undervalue ourselves and our talents and what we can bring to the table. And I'm glad there's people out in the world now that are challenging us to be like, hey, they've been there. I'm just now sort of finding a lot of them. I feel like that's what Chris Do does a lot with him challenging the status quo on teaching, as well as how we look at ourselves. I mean, Seth Godin talks a little bit about that, and several of his books, touching on it. And I just think, I don't know what the magic pill is for confidence in our own work, but that would be the one. Like, if I could dish out superpowers to everybody, that would be every creative conference I would go, I would just sprinkle the pixie dust and fairy dust or whatever it is, like, over everybody. Just be like, I want you to be confident in who you are and every statement that you make. Like, this is what I charge for my talents, and it doesn't go up. Like, this is what I charge. Type of a thing, and it's, you own it and you're confident in it and you understand that it's going to take X, Y, and Z to get this product done.
So if it's one thing to say, okay, I have confidence, and try to build that confidence in yourself. Like, did you have anyone around you to kind of create some kind of support system for you?
Yeah, I was going to say, the family here at Creative South has been really, really good about that. I mean, I've had people. My wife, Julie, is a constant, like, source of encouragement and, like, no, this is good. That's okay. You should do better. Type of with internal critiques. But then, as far as peers and friends, like having people like Lenny Terenzi and Lydia and just looking back on it, like I'm not even 100% sure how they came into my life or how we came into each other's life.
Right.
Like I know I met Lenny at it's not a portfolio review, but like a studio walk.
Gotcha.
And just crossed paths and rode down on some struggles that we were dealing with, and then like, oh yeah, and then we moved past it and became friends, and I've got an amazing fellowship of friends that if I need some feedback,
Right.
I can get it. But I don't know if I've ever not had anyone that believed in me. Like I grew up in a family where mom and dad didn't necessarily understand art, but they understood that I loved it and wanted to do it and were there to encourage me.
Okay.
I mean, like a lot of art, people don't understand some of it. Like, why do you want to do this? Like, I don't understand why the Campbell soup cans are that amazing.
Right.
Like, what's the deal, Warhol? My mom was a huge fan of Norman Rockwell.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And so she loved his storytelling. And I think I always viewed him as a painter.
Gotcha.
And it wasn't until like got into college and started learning about illustration that there was like, oh no, we're going to put him in this illustration camp. And I always was sort of like, but his paintings are amazing, technical, and like they hold their own to any other painter in history type of a thing. And but then so there was an early on engagement, involvement, investment from my initial blood family.
Gotcha.
That then grew into my creative family.
Gotcha.
And I know, talking about it now, I realize that I've been extremely fortunate and blessed to have that many people that I've been able to call my family,
right.
and that have believed enough in me to encourage me and to say, hey, where have you been? Like I've missed seeing you share your stuff, and when I'm in a low spot and then when I'm in a high spot, I'm getting digital high fives and then real high fives and hugs in person. So, and again, that would be if I could figure out a way to give that to everyone.
Right.
Like I would love for everyone to just be surrounded with people that care about them and what they're doing, both with their art and how they're doing with
I think that's important.
Oh, totally.
I mean,
if you're in a spot where you're just being crushed under mental and emotional baggage and burdens of life,
right,
that's not a good place to be creating from. I mean, you can create a bunch of work, and I mean, it's going to be, I think, pretty obvious that it's going to have some darkness in it. And I mean, to your point about your question earlier about that dark spot in your life or a creative path, like I went through a real dark spot when I was 13 where my grandfather was murdered. And I don't like going there. And I never wanted to create work that I guess dealt with it because I didn't ever want to put any more of that into the world. Like most of my stuff is pretty vibrant from the color palette standpoint.
A lot of energy.
And I think it's maybe me trying to combat some of that. And the last year and a half has been sort of a journey as I've had several people just be like, when they find out about that story, and they're like, have you ever thought about processing that through your art? And I say, I don't want that to taint this.
Right.
But I think the more that I've sat with it, the more like that idea of like that's one of the reasons I think that I've gravitated towards lighter, happier. Like I want to do work that is uplifting as opposed to something that's speaks to the evil and the
sadness
in this world. But not to try to sugarcoat it and brush it under the rug. Like it's there,
right? Which is true.
But yeah. So
Sorry to hear about your
Well,
grandfather.
I appreciate that. It was 25 years ago.
Yeah,
and
but
it still stinks.
It's still, you could tell it's like,
Yeah.
it's still, like, who was he was in your life? Like,
I was gonna say he was very one of the strongest men. Never graduated high school. I think he dropped out of what I think would be considered elementary and middle school to help run the family farm after his father passed away in up in Virginia. And so, I mean, he was a farmhand up at 5 o'clock, fetching eggs and milking the cows before he went to start something else or go to school, and then eventually dropped out of school to just basically run the farm after his dad passed away. And so there was always this an amazing work ethic of show up, do your best, put in the time, and don't ever not put your best foot forward type of thing. And that became very prevalent in our lives. Like the year before he died, like he came to spend some time with us, and he would sit with us when we were doing our homework and was extremely proud of us when we came home. And like we started taking stuff straight to him because he lit up brighter than
everybody
my
else.
mom and dad. We'd be like, "Oh, sweet, you got 100, or you got an A on this like test or report type of thing." Like he produced far more lumens with his smile and brightening up a room, and I think some of that comes from his lack of that education and just sort of building it his career. Like he was a like metalsmith worker type of a thing, and it worked his way up through the yard on up to being foreman and taking care of people, and had to deal with injuries on the work site type of thing. Just had to deal with a hard blue collar life and job, but so always wanted his son, my dad, and I, and my brother, and whatnot, to have that education as a shortcut to some a life that was a little bit better than what he had. And I didn't really put those pieces together till I've had my own children and wanting more and better for them. But looking back on the conversations, just sort of how he reacted and whatnot, there was a pride that he took in seeing us succeed. So that was, I mean, other than being grandpa,
right,
and just the relationship that people would have with their grandparents, there was that extra little bit of
that dynamic is always funny to me because I didn't experience any of my grandparents. No? Both my mom's parents died before I was even born. And I wasn't super close with my father. So by the time they were...
Well, I mean, like I said earlier, like I take that for granted.
Yeah.
And not realizing that that's not what everybody has experienced. So I hate that. Right. To hear that.
I've had people in my life.
Okay.
And I feel like God put people in my life to kind of combat that. A lot of grandmothers, not blood, but they played that. Yeah, they played that role.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? That role where someone you can go to.
Oh yeah. 100%.
Yeah, so it. But it's always cool to hear that dynamic, and I look at it and I see it through my kids when they interact with their grandparents.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, so that's what this deal is. So it's kind of cool to kind of hear who he was to you. He was that pillar.
Yeah.
He was that pillar. So that's cool. So, excuse me. So why, I know you do a lot of collateral for work, right?
Yep.
What's the deal with the illustration?
Man, illustration had, like I said, comic books and cartoons. I come back to that. Just I've always loved drawing and hadn't quite ever figured out a way to make it stick as a full-time gig, I think some of that, you always hear the starving artist thing, and you just
Right.
start believing it. And like, I can't make a living doing this, but then you meet people that are doing
it.
and it's like, why have I been buying into this lie? And what do I need to do to fix this?
It's true.
And so, gig posters, I fell into the gig poster screen print scene
Okay.
several years after it had been, like, it's...
A thing?
I fell into it around 2001, 2002.
Okay.
And then I think at that point it had definitely had a firm footing in the industry, but it was really about that time when it just like blew up and everybody was wanting to do it. And I was looking up YouTube videos trying to figure out how to screen print, and
Wow.
I missed. They didn't have screen printing at college till my senior year, and then at that point I didn't have the prerequisite classes. Like, I
Gotcha.
had initial printmaking and loved it, but needed to focus and wanted to focus more on illustration.
Gotcha.
And the design, as I had sort of stated, like not stated, but was applying for the School of Graphic or Communication Arts type
Gotcha.
of thing. So the gig posters allowed me to illustrate and do design that wasn't necessarily working for my 9-to-5 job and clients type of a thing. Like, I'd have ideas as I'm sitting there working through things and going, yeah, that's not going to work. I'm going to write that down and flesh it out for something else type of thing. And gig posters essentially was homework to myself.
Gotcha.
Where it gave me a client, the band, it gave me content, their music and who they were, and it gave me a due date and a deadline of when the show was going to be.
Gotcha.
So I had three things that I wrapped up into a piece, and I was like, okay, the thermals are going to come to the soapbox Thursday night in a month. Like,
Gotcha.
And I just would constantly check the venues and who was coming. And so I loved that aspect. It gave me that timetable and time frame, and I had to get it done. So that was sort of the impetus of a lot of the personal work that I started doing. And sitting behind a computer, I missed getting my hands dirty. And so screen printing allowed me to get ink all over everything and paint all over everything. I actually use acrylic paint.
Really?
I don't use actual screen printing inks.
Right.
They felt chalky to me, and I didn't like the way that they. I didn't like the way that they looked.
So, how's the quality like? Does it?
I mean, I figure if acrylic paint's good enough to be put on canvas, it's good enough to be put on paper, and it's as archival as it would be on canvas. And I thin it out with some extender.
Right.
That, and there's the overprinting quality is my absolute favorite part of screen printing. When you can print a blue and then you print a transparent red over top of it, you get purple, and you've got three colors immediately on a 2-color job. And
wow.
So there are artists that do it so much better than me, but that's one of the goals, and I will burn probably 2 days at the end of a project when I've got it. All right, now how do I turn this? How do I make this a 3-color print with two colors?
Which, for those who don't know, that's a big deal. It's screen print.
Check out Little Friends of Printmaking. They're out in Pasadena.
Okay.
They're out in California. They do it well. They do it well. Like, a lot of tongue in cheek in some of their artwork type of a thing, but they will make 2 colors go farther than just about.
Like, it's crazy to me that you took on screen print, and I always saw that thing as it's so daunting. Someone else is going to do it for me.
It definitely is, but it's super fun, and you get test prints, and that's the magic for me, and it's. Forrest Gump says life's like a box of chocolates. I say life's like a test print, where you basically will have ink and you'll lay down ink. You'll pull a print, and you'll look at it, the paper, to make sure that everything's laying down correctly.
Gotcha.
And if it's not, then you try to fix it, or you may need to burn another screen. But you've got evidence of something that you did.
Gotcha.
Then the next thing you don't necessarily throw that away because it's a mistake type of thing. You just hold on to it, and you just do a couple of test prints to make sure the ink's the color that you want it to be, that the image isn't blown out, and you're getting a good crisp image type of a thing. And after doing, you can start doing this after 5-6 posters, like the layering upon layering, and it's like life. Like, I made a mistake. I made another mistake. And you just start stacking your mistakes on top of one another, and then you look back at them, and you're
it's like a work of art.
It's a freaking work of art. Like, there's only one of these, and if you don't learn from your mistakes, it's just going to be a garbage test print.
Gotcha.
But if you learn and you go, okay, I see this, I need to do this differently next time, that's when you can start changing and making the transition from a mess of mistakes to a $100 like mono print art print that is beautiful and has value type of thing. And I think far too often we just sort of sit with our mistakes and let them determine and dictate who we are and where we're going, as opposed to being able to make that mental shift and going, no, this is an art print, and this is what I've learned from this story and these mistakes, and that's got me to this point. It's more like a visual diary.
Gotcha.
Of like, this is the journey that I've been on as an artist type of thing, and and you get color combinations that you would never think of. Like, this color, this poster is going to be a black, red, and white type of thing, and then you're going to do a red print over top of a predominantly cool blue.
And you can't get to do that when you're hiring someone because it will cost your arm and a leg.
And honestly, I like experimenting.
Gotcha.
Far too much, and I think I need to dial in my personal work so that when a client comes, they know what they're going to get.
Gotcha.
I think right now, I've experimented too much.
It's time
Play
to
too much, so.
do some.
But yeah.
Okay, cool.
Did I even answer that question?
Nah,
I
you did.
apologize.
You did.
Just rambling about art prints.
Yeah, I can tell. Like, you're super passionate about that. Like, you can geek out.
Yeah, totally.
All right, so let's jump into some fun questions.
All right.
What is that thing you can't live without? That's not your phone.
Not my phone. Is family included in that? Or does it have to be an object that I've purchased?
Well, I was hoping it was an object.
An
I've
object
never
that-
got the family thing. Go ahead.
Okay, for an object, sketchbook. And I'm still.
I thought you were gonna say a screen printing machine.
Well, that's not something that I can take everywhere I want to go.
True.
I was gonna say the right now I'm experimenting with the Baron Fig little pocket notebook.
Nice.
I've been given Moleskines. Moleskines are probably my favorite. I mean, anything that's got a pocket in the back. But the Moleskine sketchbooks have got a paper that will hold up to me putting paint in it, and not bleed through too much to the next page,
which is a big deal.
Yeah, and I print in my sketchbooks. Like, if I've got leftover ink, I will totally let you pull my sketchbooks out, put them on the press, and pull a poster over top of it, and that will allow me to basically keep from looking at a white canvas, a blank canvas. It allows me to have something down there that I can then go back and create on top of, type of a thing. So yeah, I'd say sketchbook for sure. But yeah, definitely family. Family's important.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Creative or blood.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that is true.
So
yeah, kind of, especially the family that we've created.
Yes, 100%.
It puts everything in perspective.
Oh yeah. Somebody had said, and I guess they'd used the term like family and friends. Like, friends are the family that you get to choose,
right?
Type of thing. Which, like I said, I've been blessed with having a really good family, blood, but I've been that much more blessed to have, people like you in my life that just call up, say, hey, how things going? You've been on my mind.
Right.
Or get a text.
Right.
What do you think about this or that? Yeah.
Which is important because we get it. We get where we're trying to go. We get each other. That's in career and in personal. And for me and you, we got a lot in common.
We got a lot coming. Yeah, I was gonna say I was extremely excited that I wasn't alone in the four kid club,
which is true, bro. So I am there with you. All right, so book recommendations.
Book recommendations. Oh man, okay. I got a couple. Die Empty and Accidental Creative are really good. Frick, I'm totally drawing a blank on his name right now. I'll get it to you. But they basically, the idea in Die Empty that stuck with me is like the most valuable property on this planet is the graveyard. And the reason that is because that's where all the unfinished ideas are buried. Like if you've got ideas that you want to do and want to create, but you never act, they die with you. And then those $1 million ideas or this innovation or this artwork or this story or this poem or this speaker or a non-crappy politician is now buried in the ground.
Wow.
And so that was the idea of Die Empty was like get as much of that out of yourself as you possibly can so that you can die empty of ideas, and you've expelled everything that you've believed in, wanted to create, had in you, thought to make or wanted to make. Like you've put it out there.
I like that.
And I just finished up The Road Back to You. It's an anagram.
Okay.
And I never was one, like, growing up comic books, like, I always just was interested in the pretty pictures and the story type of a thing, what's going to happen next. And so the personal development happened far later than I would have liked for it to have happened. But I'm glad that I'm doing it. And I would encourage everybody to double down on you and figure out what makes you tick. Understand what it is you want to be doing. That way, you can get a clearer picture earlier than I got and made for myself. So
I'm there with you, man. I like that Die Empty book, though. So, what's the first hour of your creative day like? Or just today in general?
First, are we starting at midnight is the first hour, or are we starting in the morning? Because a lot of times I'm ending yesterday with the start of my morning, still burning the oils.
All right, the new day.
The new day, okay. Unfortunately, right now, like I have not made the transition to be a morning bird. I'm still a night owl.
Wow.
Or an early bird.
Right.
Not an early bird. I'm a night owl.
Gotcha.
And so I will
work super late.
I will work super late, and then I will sleep up till the very last minute I possibly can, and then get the day rolling. But I mean, with 4 kids, we're finally now at the point where everyone's sleeping mostly through the night, and we have very little like. My youngest is 1.
Okay.
My oldest will be 9 this year, but. They're, occasional nightmares, or you'll hear them whimpering, and they're totally sleeping, just having something's chasing them or something like that, or they fell off their tricycle.
Yeah.
So wake them up, make sure they're good. Okay, I'm going to go back to bed. But I was going to say, snuggle hugs have become a thing where kids will, get up with us, and some of them just want to sort of hang out and snuggle for a little bit, which way better than getting ready and going to work. Just that I want to make sure that I capitalize on those moments and make sure that
that's true. I'm
not pushing them off. So anytime that there's some loving coming my way, I stop to make sure that happens. But I want to be better about getting into a routine where I'm up earlier than everyone else in the house by several hours, and get into their journaling and writing down ideas. A lot of times I'll try to do that at night, and brain shot. Words don't make sense. I'm a horrible speller and with grammar.
Yeah.
But yeah, you throw that on top of a full day of
A
work
fried
and then
brain.
trying to do something, for yourself after being dad and husband. It's like,
It's rough.
where does it, what in it?
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough.
Spell check ain't even going to help you.
Nah, it's rough. I'm there with you. Like, I made that transition a few years ago.
Yeah.
And it changed everything. Now, sometimes I still go to bed late, but I've been getting up early so long that no matter what time I go to bed, I get up early no matter what.
Okay.
No matter what. I get up early automatically.
Are you a coffee guy? Is there caffeine in your routine?
It's like a love-hate relationship. For real. Because I had to stop drinking it for a period of time because it gave me like this phlegmy buildup.
Yeah?
Yeah, and one morning I was at church and I was doing worship and I was choking. Like literally choking on my own phlegm. So
Man, yeah, I would imagine that.
but it wasn't actually coffee. I later on
creamer?
it was yeah. So
Is it a dairy thing?
yeah. So I eventually went to almond milk. So
Oh, okay. So
Yeah,
just straight black coffee?
or black coffee. Yeah,
Can't do it.
It's grueling.
Oh,
It's
man.
like you should want to when you're eating or drinking, you should be enjoying it on the way down.
Yes.
It's rough.
Most
but
of the time, I feel like when I drink black
I don't
coffee,
really
it just
drink
smacks
the-
me around the
right.
whole way. I'm like, you hate me. Why do you hate? Why am I doing this?
Yeah, but I don't really drink that much coffee. I kind of toned down on it
Yep.
after I went through that period of
Yep.
stop drinking it.
Yep.
So I'm off and on, but yeah. But usually, like I get up regardless. 6:37. I'm gonna get up somewhere between
Right on.
that span. But one thing it did, it gave me a clearer mind in the morning, clearer mind. And so, if anyone, I would encourage them to do it because I wasn't that night owl.
Yeah.
Like 3 a.m. And I think
heck yeah.
college had a big part to play in that.
Oh, 100%.
College
100%.
inducted us in that whole deal. But yeah, I would recommend anyone to do that change. All right, so what's next for Doc?
Oh man, yeah, trying to figure out what those goals are for myself personally and the career.
Gotcha.
Like I said early on, like a lot of that time, I wouldn't say it was wasted, but it definitely wasn't focused.
Right.
So I've been trying to double down and play catch up on where I need to go, what I need to be doing, and so that is the big question on my mind right now, and it's fuzzy. So I'm trying to figure out a way to continue to do more art,
More of your personal
more
art.
of my stuff. Figure out a way to find the clients that would benefit from
Gotcha.
me having to sit next to them or alongside with them, partnering to create a story or to tell a story about what they're wanting to do with their company or with their article.
Right.
If it's
Right.
an editorial type of illustration or whatnot. I think everybody's trying to working towards that personal brand.
Right.
Trying to figure out if that's part of who I am, what I am doing, and there's growing up or helping raise the kids. There have been stories that have started to creep onto the horizon, where I'm like, I wonder, just for the love of doing and storytelling, I wonder if there's a kid's book
Yeah.
in me somewhere, and that's one of those die empty. Like I want to get it out,
Yeah.
so that I don't take it with me to the grave type of a thing. So that's probably the biggest daunting personal project that I've got right now is to get the story working correctly and figure out how to present it visually. So
Yeah, I'm with you on that because I've talked to you talk to senior citizens. The one thing they always tell you is that thing they never did. Always that
that's
thing.
what they regret is the one thing that they never did.
They never talk about the great accomplishments. They never talk about the things that they got done. They always talk about the things that they never got done. So when you said that book, I feel like that book really resonated with me because that's like my thought process.
Cool.
If
Well,
it's-
check it out. Let me know what you think. I'd
Yeah.
love to go back through my notes and read back up on things. that I wrote. I think I read it probably 4 or 5 years ago at this point.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you probably read it again and
A whole fresh set of eyes.
And get deeper.
Yeah.
So what advice would you have for creatives out there?
Stop selling yourself short. I think it runs rampant in our industry, and I think some of that comes from that stupid little voice in the back of our head that says, I'm not good enough for, I was gonna say, if you can turn off your Instagram and all of the follower monster mentality and just post to post and share and get that stuff out of you and out of your head and out into the world, and then focus on the relationships and building them. Don't sell yourself short. We do it far too often from the value that we create and give to other people with the work that we do and the thinking that we do. Not every idea that we have is going to be gold, but
you got to get it out.
We're going to have a couple bronze ideas in there. We're going to have some silver ideas. We'll have some gold ideas, and I think, unfortunately, we're not all going to have the platinum or the unobtainium.
Right. It's true. It's true. It's true, but you got to get it out because I feel like it will eat you up not getting it out more than whatever quote unquote failure you're going to experience.
And if you're hiding because you're scared that you're going to fail, then you're always going to live in that space. Like I said, mistakes stacked on top of mistakes, if you learn from them, become beautiful test sprints type of a thing. And it's just being able to be smart enough to look back and go, this is what I learned from that. This is what I learned from that mistake or that project.
Right.
And then, it doesn't even have to be a mistake. It's just, what did I learn from this project? And if you can sit down after a project to dissect what went right, what went wrong, and what could potentially have gone either way, I think then you'll just exponentially grow how you think and how you work with clients and your own work type of thing. And then that'll build your confidence and self-esteem, and you'll be like, yeah, I know what I'm talking about.
Right. Dude, this has been great, man. This has been great. Where can people go to find you, learn more about you?
They can find me on the socials at I Am Redicus. My website is iamredicus.com, and I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Behance.
Okay.
I think that's pretty much everything. My Etsy store is pretty much dead, but I'm trying to resurrect it.
I'm done with Etsy. Yeah, I'm done. Well, Doc, my good friend, this has been awesome, man. I really appreciate you doing this, and we are live here at the greatest conference on the planet, Creative South. Dude, I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been an honor. Thank you. Thank you for your friendship and for doing this. I know that your interviews with other guests have made an impact as I'm driving to and from work and helping me reevaluate some things and
dude,
put people in my life that I hadn't necessarily met already.
I really appreciate that, man.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. I hope it's been super valuable to you and you're now ready to take your audience building, your community growing to the next level to help you and help me build our empire, for lack of a better word, or just to build our thing. Remember to stop by iTunes, Passion Behind the Art, and leave a review and subscribe. It's very important to me. It helps the podcast grow, and it makes me feel good to kind of hear from you guys, to know what you like about this podcast, what it's done for you. So jump on iTunes and subscribe and leave a review. Passion Behind the Art. Be blessed.